Pesachim Daf. In today's two emails are pictures of two individuals learning Torah, learning Daf yomi on a flight. The first comes from Yosef Goldberg. He says, R Eli, thank you for the amazing share and all that you put into it. On my recent flight to Boca Raton, I downloaded the Daf from YouTube. I was Baruch Hashem able to learn on the flight, see attached, amazing. Sitting right in front of a TV instead of watching TV, doing the Daf. Second email is from Yossi Klein. Since it became a tradition to learn Daf yomi on a flight, I decided to book a flight to Florida. So I'll have the schus of learning on the flight. And just to make it more interesting, I brought my 2-year-old son along for the picture. Thank you, Yossi Klein. So we're discussing the different karbanas that one must bring on Pesach, and we're discussing the carbon chagiga. There's two carbon chagigas. One is called chagiga yudalid, the other is called chagiga tesvav. Yudalid is only in a situation where you don't have enough meat on the carbon Pesach, and you must eat the carbon Pesach when you're full, so you bring another carbon chagiga. That only comes if it's on the weekday, and you're b'tahara, etc., and you don't have enough meat. The reason why this mission is inserted right in the middle of our sugya is because we were discussing different things that you cannot do for carbon Pesach and push off Shabbos, such as carrying an animal on Shabbos is asur. So too, you don't bring carbon chagiga on Shabbos, that would be asur. But upon him, you see from this, says the Gemara, that carbon chagiga of Yudalid is not a chayva, it's not obligatory. If you don't want to bring it, you don't have to bring it. If you have enough meat on the carbon Pesach, that's fine. How many days could you eat this carbon chagiga? Just like a regular shlamim, says the Mishnah, 2 days and a night. Says Gemara, that doesn't go according to Ben Tema. Ben Tema is of the opinion that the carbon chagiga of Yudalid is identical to a carbon Pesach in almost every single halacha, besides one that Gemara remains in a suffix. The pasuk says, Zevach Chag HaPasach. Zevach, says Ben Tema, is referring to the carbon chagiga, and it's a hekesh to Pesach. Just like carbon Pesach is only eaten for one night, not even the day, so too, the chagiga is only that one night. However, the chagiga of Tesvav, the chagiga you bring during Pesach, that's eaten like a regular shlamim for 2 days and a night. What happens if you designated a carbon chagiga Yudalid for Erev Pesach and you never brought it? Can you use that for the carbon chagiga of Tesvav? The answer is no. The carbon chagiga Tesvav, since it's a chayva, it's obligatory, the rule is that anything that's a chayva must be brought from chulin, and the chagiga Yudalid is not considered chulin, and therefore you cannot bring it. However, the carbon chagiga of Yudalid could be used for another carbon called Shalmi Simcha. The halacha is that you must eat every single day of Yantiv, Chalamayid, from meat from a carbon, Shalmi Simcha. So you could use the chagiga of Yudalid to be Yaitza Shalmi Simcha. Says Ben Tema, there are other halachas that the carbon chagiga is identical to the carbon Pesach. We know carbon Pesach has to be solely, has to be roasted. So too, chagiga. Carbon Pesach has to be only a zachar, ben shana, 1-year-old, and it's eaten only limenuya, only to the people that are registered on the carbon Pesach. So to chagiga, zachar, ben shana, menuya. The one halacha that Gemara is not clear about is shviras etzem, breaking a bone. Is an issa d'oraisa, ve'etzem lo yisishberu bay. It's also to break a bone, any bone of the carbon Pesach. Perhaps the word bay comes to exclude any other carbon, that a carbon chagiga is not included in the etzem lo yisishberu bay, which only applies to carbon Pesach. The Gemara brings a raya from a person that finds a knife. It's a knife that doesn't have a simon, he wants to keep it, and he wants to do shchita with it. Perhaps it's not tar. So if he finds it on the 14th of Nisan, we could assume that the previous owner that dropped the knife, he was already toivel, took care of the tefillah. But if he found it on the 13th, perhaps the previous owner was waiting until nighttime to be toivel it. If Shabbos falls out on the 14th, you don't have to be toivel the knife on the 13th because it's asur to be toivel on Shabbos, and therefore the previous balabais, he was toivel it then. However, if you find a cleaver, a kufetz, what do you do with a cleaver? You break bones. You have to be toivel it. If you find a kufetz, you must be toivel it. Why is that? L'chayre goes according to Ben Tema, who says that you cannot break the bones of a carbon chagiga. Therefore, he has no use for it, so he wasn't toivel it. So you go ahead and be toivel it. So the Gemara says no. We can push it off. We'll say we're talking about a very specific situation where the Nasi was on his deathbed on the 13th of Nisan. And we're not sure if he's going to die or not, but on the tzad that he's going to die, all of Klai Yisrael become tamid to the Nasi. They're all going to go to the funeral and become tamid. The previous owner, he was toivel his knife only, because there's one suffix. Is the Nasi going to die or not? Do I need a knife that's tar? If he dies, then we don't need a knife that's tar, because we're going to be makriv the carbon Pesach betuma. However, the cleaver, he's not going to be toivel because there's a double suffix. First of all, he might die, and I don't need a cleaver. And even if he doesn't die, I might not need a carbon chagiga because I have enough meat. So on that double suffix, he's not going to be toivel the koifetz. Yehuda ben Durtai argues on the Mishnah, and he says that the carbon chagiga of Yudalid pushes off Shabbos. He was so convinced of his opinion that he ran away from Yerushalayim. He went up south, so he's not chayiv in a carbon pesach, because he held that he would have to bring a carbon chagiga on Shabbos, and they wouldn't allow it. And he said to me, Hani, I'm confused and don't understand why it is that the two Gdei Adar, Shmai and Avtalion, didn't paskin like this. So Rav explains what is Shita, where Shita comes from. It says, B'zavachta Pesach Lashem Elikecha, Soinu Bakar. Now we know a carbon pesach is only from tzayin, only from sheep and goats. What's bakar? Why cows? Obviously, bakar is referring to the carbon chagiga, which is just like a carbon pesach. V'zavachta pushes off Shabbos. Rav Ashi says someone who runs away and doesn't act like everybody else, there's no need to go into details why he holds like that. So what's the pshat in the pasuk ubakar? Bakar is coming to tell us halacha that if you have an extra carbon pesach, let's say your pesach got lost and you run another one instead, what do you do with the extra one when you find it? You bring it as a shlamim, meaning bakar, something that you could bring as a cow, which is a shlamim. Rabbanan, all of Klal Yisrael are bringing this chagiga on Erev Pesach. And if Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, why shouldn't it push off Shabbos? So the Gemara tells us, because there's a mefurish pasuk by Sukkos, that you also have to bring a carbon chagiga. It says, only 7 days do you bring a chagiga. What happened to the 8th day? The answer is, one of the days has to be Shabbos. We're forced to have at least one Shabbos. On that Shabbos, you don't bring a carbon chagiga. So it says in the Torah, you don't bring a carbon chagiga on Shabbos. Ravin asked the question, but sometimes there's 2 Shabbosim on Sukkot. What if the first day of Sukkot is Shabbos? So you only bring 6. Says Abaye, the pasuk is talking about a typical case. Most of the time, there's only one Shabbos, and therefore fits in beautifully to the pasuk. Have a wonderful day.